Good afternoon, everyone. Food shortages, export bans, and exponential price rises in March. Food protectionism is what they're calling it. Hungary bans now exports following Moldova, Argentina. Global grain stockpiles to drop for a fifth year. Biggest weekly gain on record. Wheat, vertical, from $8 to $13.40. Looking at the numbers, Hungary's ban 127,000 tons. Moldova, the stamp center stage of agriculture. Ukrainian wheat exports, these countries, civil unrest starting. Bangladesh, Pakistan, Turkey, Indonesia, and Egypt as the food is cut off. Wheat exports coming in the lowest time of the year, May and June, but we can only use the precedent of what we've seen in history. Average 4x increase on these types of situations. Do you think fiat currency based on debt can survive this? The U.S. has warned its citizens to prepare for possible cyber attacks. Hacking is a key tool for bad actors globally, especially in these last 2 years. Hacker groups have struck government websites and news outlets across Russia. And now news outlets talk about retaliation of shutting down U.S. banks, hospitals, transportation, and more. Your personal data has never been more vulnerable than now. You can head over to virtualshield.com, and in the download tab, I'm going to choose Firefox and click Install Now to add the Virtual Shield add-on. It's just that easy. And get started with your free 30-day trial. Install it, click Connect. You'll see the shield turn from red to green, and you'll see how from my initial service provider I was able to even change my IP. Virtual Shield Network protected. Try Virtual Shield for free by going to virtualshield.com/adapt2030 or clicking the link in the description box below. This month, they're offering 50% off for life for all free trial signups. Download Virtual Shield today. And now on with the video. You could choose any term that you want for vertical line up, trajectory. Every commodity across the planet fitting the same profile, some faster than others. Crop prices hitting fresh all-time highs. This is the agricultural spot index. Even eclipsing 2009, 10, 11, the highest ever recorded. We're above that now. And going to continue doubling and tripling from here. Wheat soaring to 14-year highs. So close to $14 right now. Sitting around $13.40. It's the biggest weekly gain on record. 40% in a single week. Now, how many more weeks can it go up 10, 20, 30, 40% before you look at the news and say, we have a serious problem, and so do all your neighbors and all the people in your same city and the country all run to the stores at the same time? Corn up 16%. Corn's used in everything, from the cattle and dairy industry all the way down to most things processed in a box that you get from a supermarket, and what they call stocks, carryover stocks, actually in hand, in a silo, stored in major wheat exporters, EU, Russia, United States, Canada, Ukraine, Argentina, Australia, Kazakhstan, falling to 9-year lows. That's from the International Grains Council. And prices are doing something that have never been seen before. The speed at which these price increases are coming in based on the news, with at least 35% of all grains going offline right now or being rationed in sort of an export ban through many countries. It's going to continue to go northward. I'm calling $20 wheat, and I had even last year, based on what would be happening during the grand solar minimum. Now, if you'd been following along with the USDA report since 2015, you were seeing this downward trajectory of every year global crop output was decreasing. Now we have the global food inflation, export restrictions everywhere, and every day you turn around, it's another country, another country, another country, restricting exports, meaning not making it to the market, not making it into the belly of somebody or some animal. And a fifth year in a row for global grain stockpiles, a little bit different than just the main exporters, because this includes everybody. Was expected in the grand solar minimum that we were going to start losing crops to the point where governments couldn't hide it any longer. And there would have to be excuses, and the planet would be locked down so you wouldn't be able to move to other destinations where life might be cheaper. Now we're coming into the economic reset portion of this, or the perception of an equal trade is going to change, or drastically and quickly. So looking at the surge to almost $14 off AgFacts here, wheat soaring to the 14-year high. Wheat prices up 60% since February. That's a good 5 weeks. And again, Bloomberg also reporting on the record weekly gain for wheat prices. Now, Russia and Ukraine account for 30% of wheat and corn exports globally. And also a lion's share of fertilizer production coming out of Russia, which apparently by news reports is going to cease. So the natural gas goes first, fertilizer prices follow. So if we're looking at European natural gas above 2,500, where is that going to leave the fertilizer prices lagging down about half that price? $12.50. They're going to skyrocket right along. And by the way, there was a massive fertilizer shortage inbound for 2022 anyway that was going to wipe off about 12% of global agriculture just from the fertilizer and herbicide shortages. Done many a video on this. It's been talked about for months and months, and would be front page news coming up around May that would have spooked the populace to run to the stores anyway. Now we have this event, Ukraine, Russia going offline. Now, Hungary is going to ban any exports. That includes anywhere into the EU. Soft wheat, 127,000 tons. This will take effect immediately. But here's an interesting buy note here. Bulgaria, a much larger exporter, is looking to buy grain also because it cannot currently meet the population needs, even though it produces more than Hungary. So I started to take a look here. Bulgaria, 11.5 million tons of production. Now that's all grains together. Exponentially larger than Hungary. They're looking for imports. Watch Bulgaria, one of the next countries to halt exports. We'll move over to Moldova. Beautiful stamp collection here. Look how front and center in importance agriculture is, using it for the post. Now Moldova has already done the same thing and banned all exports, corn, wheat, and sugar. So looking at Moldova's exports, 800,000 tons. So it might be 800,000 tons in Moldova. 127,000 tons from Hungary. But then we're almost near 1 million tons anyway on that. Then you add in Bulgaria, definitely going to cut 1 million or 2 tons out of that. 30% of the world with Ukraine and Russia, and these numbers just keep adding up and up. Oh, and don't forget Argentina. A few months back, they suspended all corn exports. Prices were rising. People were angry. The government listened and kept the corn in the country. Farmers are angry because they couldn't sell at the higher prices. But here's a snapshot of Black Sea production. And as the region outside the EU, so the European Union has its own growing region. So Black Sea has its own production. Russian Federation, or Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus is going to be in the news quickly as well. And we're looking at Kazakhstan. Remember, just a few months ago, Russia was also helping in Kazakhstan. So between this chart here, an enormous amount of global grains being controlled or going offline by certain parties. So we know so far up to this point and through this next month, possibly two, that Russian and Ukrainian wheat are not going to be offered, and country after country is going to follow with export restrictions. That's wheat. Corn is next. And we're coming into the planting season with Ukrainian farming. This month they would be tilling the fields. If it does not go in the ground, we are going to have a famine on this planet. And a nice quote here, Rabobank, we are now learning what it means to eject the world's only full-spectrum commodity superpower from the international financial and trading system. How much would that be, though, in tonnage, do you think? So Russian Federation, or Russia, was poised to come in somewhere around 115 million tons. They dropped their forecast from 127 or 130 million all the way down to 115 million. Knocked in production, which matches up with that 10% loss there. Ukraine, we'll call it 87 million tons. Kazakhstan, an extra 15 or 16 million tons. That's all offline. Kazakhstan production generally goes to China anyway. But look for Belarus to be next, 5.3 million tons. Then we got Hungary and Bulgaria, Moldova, and it just keeps rolling along with the export bans. And perusing the news from this week forward, all you're going to see is food crisis imminent, food prices rising, export bans. And what did they call it? Food protectionism will suddenly be a nasty thing. How dare you want to keep your own food in your own country to feed your own people? Don't care if your people starve, you got to keep the markets working. So expect wheat prices already at record highs to double again, and that would push right up into the $20 plus range for wheat. And the suggestion here from Zero Hedge, buy flour, milled flour, rice, barley, and any other grains you can right now. As this awareness rolls through the general public, people are going to become frightened and spooked. And if they were buying toilet paper last time because they thought there was something exceptional happening, how's it going to slap them in the face that their children are going to starve if they don't get the food? Oh, toilet paper run was going to be nothing compared to this. The fright of your children starving and you not having enough food, that's levels up above toilet paper. But one thing we can forecast out here is at least a 4x price increase in this first wave. And as you see through history here, 1755 to 1800, that 50 years, the same things were going on. Bad harvest seasons, political upheaval, nations fighting nations, and burn in Switzerland is the dotted line with wheat. And you'll see that rye followed right along with that. And an interesting footnote on there, the harvest season at the end of the peaks were the reason that the spikes had dropped. So we are entering into a no-grow, little surplus, immediate spike up, but as we enter the summer and come into the harvest season, it will come down. But the awareness of the grand solar minimum and this year forward not being able to produce as much food as last year, and then next year will be less than this year, and 2024 would be substantially less than this year, regardless of what happens geopolitically. We can only look at the past, these Six Sigma Black Swan events. Okay, maybe. But we see what happened in the past. So 4x increase in your price of food. Anything associated with wheat, breads, it's going to become unaffordable for many, and stores will stop stocking it. Following on that same price chart, here's what you're looking for. And the reason that the export figures increased from 1 million tons to 4.5 million tons in 2021 was that's the harvest season. We're coming down on the far right of the chart here where there's very little left after that last harvest season, and the lowest of the exports is in June. So as we come from now to June, the food becomes less and less and less and less available until we get into the harvest season coming around September. So June, July, August, hyperinflation inbound for food. And these are the 4 countries here that are going to be absolutely crippled, and you will see these in the news: overthrowing governments, food riots, and something that was very similar to the Arab Spring. Egypt already understands the dangerous line of not having enough food for your people and the geopolitics surrounding that. So would it be round 2 for Egypt because they get most of their wheat from Ukraine? Indonesia will be next, although Indonesia can grow quite a bit of its own food, and it limited palm oil exports. So it had an export restriction now this week on palm oil, not wheat. Turkey, they're already at 50% per month in inflation anyway on a borderline hyperinflationary event. And Pakistan really started coming on in 2020, and 1.25 million tons instantly ripped from the grasp there. So what's going to happen now? These countries are in incredible danger because everything that you see on this chart is going to zero. Where do they make it up? Well, you already saw the statistics and how low grains are across the entire planet and what's being restricted on exports. they are not going to find the level that they need anywhere else on the planet to make it up. So when you see the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization spokesperson saying publicly on the record, I've never seen anything like it in 30 years. The situation is just awful. At some point, people are going to realize what may be coming. We're all going to have to tighten our belts, and the mood could get very nasty. And that part in there that says realize what may be coming in 2 weeks will be realize it's already here. By the end of March, food prices will have more than doubled. I would expect no less than 5 more countries to restrict exports on all grains. The price of oil will be around $150. And out of the countries, Egypt, Indonesia, Turkey, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, 2 of them will have daily street protests because of food pricing. Not sure exactly which 2, but 2 of those 5 you are going to see in the news with rockin' street protests against the government unable to keep food affordable. And I guess this would be the global food price and grain shortage forecast for March 2022. It's going to scare me coming into April if I'm doing it again. One thing we do need, though, is storable foods. Just like you saw in the charts, there's going to be fresh, more available during the summer, during harvest season. You can supplement when you need. Long-term storable foods, 25-year shelf life, great hedge against inflation at this moment. Adapt 2030 and My Patriot Supply, the 3-month emergency food supply. That link's in the description box below, along with all of tonight's stories, images, and graphs, so you can do more of your own information search and more of your own analysis beyond what I present here. And Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast, anywhere podcasts are hosted across the net, 30 minutes of commentary, talking about some of the same ideas and how the world is being affected by this new grand solar minimum that very few people want to talk about, but it will intensify through 2024. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video, and I'll see you next time.